Welcome to our channel. At 1,000 subscribers, we will post a special series of videos for you. Enjoy watching.
The twin suns of Lyra 9 bled red and violet light through the clouded atmosphere, painting the ash-choked plains with a dying glow. The war had ended here 3 standard cycles ago, according to human records. But war Rakor knew never ended. It only changed its shape beneath the humming aurora of decaying orbital debris. The pack hunted again. They moved in silence. 12 Varakai, armored in scavenged plating and polymer flesh. Their exosuits were patched with human tech, their weapons hybrid constructs of fang and plasma. Each step left an imprint of ionized dust, each breath visible in the freezing dusk. The pack was not born of nature alone. They were engineered predators. Long ago, the Varakai had been uplifted from a feral world by alien geneticists seeking soldiers. The experiment had worked too well. The Varakai learned not just to fight, but to hate, to love, to grieve. And when the humans came, with their banners of conquest and promises of peace, the Varakai had already learned betrayal. Roshingle quotes KO. Their alpha stalked at the head of the formation. His fur, where not replaced by armor plating, was dark as nebular dust. The left side of his face was a lattice of scarred tissue, the relic of a Terran acid shell. His right eye glowed, a mechanical implant that could read thermal trails and analyze molecular decay. He didn't blink often. He didn't need to. Still no signal from the scouts. Rakor asked in a deep, modulated growl that rippled through the cum-net. His lieutenant, Sura, crouched beside a broken wall of ferrocrete. Negative, Alpha. They followed the scent of the young toward the southern ridge. Then, silence? Rakor turned his head slightly, the servos in his neck whining. How long? 3 cycles, Sura said, his voice low. Too long. The Alpha's claws flexed against the ground. Then they're dead. A pause fell over the channel. Even through the static of the dust storm, the others heard the finality in his tone. But Rakor was not done. Unless, he added softly, they were captured, the humans would not waste young blood. They would test it. At that, a low growl rippled through the pack. The wind howled across the ruins. All around them lay the bones of the Lyra 9 human research complex, what had once been a sprawling colony of scientists and soldiers, now reduced to debris fields and haunted echo chambers. Metal beams jutted from the ground like the ribs of a buried titan. The air stank of radiation and oil. Broken drones scuttled through the rubble like metallic insects, their logic cores corrupted but still obeying long-dead commands. Core led the way through a corridor blackened by plasma fire. The walls were scrawled with human graffiti, strange comforts of a dying army. We were here. Forgive us. No gods beyond orbit. He had seen these words before. On every world they had burned, they reached a chamber where the floor was smeared with blood. Fresh blood. Rakor knelt, dipping 2 clawed fingers into it. The fluid shimmered faintly, glowing with bioluminescent particles. Varakai, he murmured. Cub's blood. 2 days old. Sura cursed under his breath. They were here? Another pack member, Taran, raised a scanning module to his visor. Human tech residue, 5 signatures. One strong enough to be a command unit. Rakor's lips curled. Military. The pack tensed as he rose to his full height. His shadow stretched long and thin across the rubble. They took what is ours, he said. His voice was low, almost a growl, but it carried across the cum like thunder. And they will answer for it. The howl that followed shook the ruins. It was not the call of beasts, it was a declaration. Hours passed. They tracked the blood trail, through canyons and over irradiated fields. It led them toward the foothills of Mount Varel, a jagged ridge that tore into the night, sky-like claws reaching for the moons. The deeper they went, the stranger the readings became. The ground hummed beneath their feet. Human power lines buried under the soil still pulsed faintly. A hidden generator, maybe. A lab. Rakor raised a hand, halting the pack. Do you feel it? Sura nodded. Life. Close. But Faint, the Alpha closed his eyes. His mechanical eye dimmed, switching to a deep scanning mode. He could smell it now, a faint trace of pheromones, musk, and something else. Synthetic air, recycled. A living human, he motioned to the team. Form up. No mercy. They advanced toward a half-buried structure, its roof half-collapsed, lights flickering weakly inside. Above the entrance, the faded lettering read, Research Station, Delta 9, Xenobiological Division Sierra Spat. The cubs were taken here. Rakor felt his pulse quicken. He had known loss before, but this was different. The young were sacred to the pack, carriers of blood memory, the continuation of their kind. To lose them was to lose the future, and to find them inside a human lab. That was blasphemy. The team breached the door. In silence, one sweep, 2 plasma rifles charged, claws drawn dot inside. The corridors were lit by emergency lamps flickering in and out of life. The air was cold, damp, and thick with chemical residue. There were cages. Small, reinforced with containment fields, empty, but the smell of the cubs was everywhere. Sharp, innocent, recent. A whimper echoed faintly from deeper within the lab. The pack froze. Rakor motioned silently, and they followed him into the central chamber. The door hissed open, and they saw not soldiers, not scientists, just one human, a man slumped against the wall, wrapped in a torn uniform marked with the Tyran Vanguard insignia. His hair was matted with blood. Around him, the floor was covered with shattered medical tools, syringes, and spilled nutrient gel and against his chest, 2 small shapes. Breathing softly, Varakai cubs, alive, Rakor's vision tunneled. His mechanical eye zoomed, scanning vitals. Their heartbeats were steady, their bodies unharmed. They were sleeping, one nestled in the man's arm, the other curled against his neck. The pack raised their weapons instantly, aiming at the human, but Rakor lifted his hand. Old, the man stirred, blinking weakly. When he saw them, 12 towering beasts clad in armor and fury, he didn't scream. He only lifted one shaking hand, palm outward. Don't. Wake them, he whispered. His voice was hoarse. Please. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sarah snarled. He mocks us? Rakor didn't move. His instincts screamed to strike, yet something in the human's eyes stopped him. They weren't cruel eyes. They were hollow, haunted. Rakor stepped closer. You are the one who took them? The human swallowed. No, he said quietly. I saved them. The pack shifted uneasily. Rakor's claws brushed the hilt of his blade. Explain. The man looked down at the cubs, his face softening. They were being experimented on. The officers wanted to weaponize their neural lattice. I couldn't let that happen. I killed them. The others. You killed your own pack, Sarah spat. The human gave a tired smile. Then maybe I finally became one of yours. No one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of machinery and the steady, innocent breathing of the cubs. Rakor's mechanical eye flickered as he scanned the man's vitals. Truth, no deception markers. The cubs' bodies carried traces of sedative, medical grade, not poison. He stepped closer. The weight of centuries of blood between their species pressing down on him. For the first time since the war began, Rakor hesitated. Outside, a storm began to rise. Dust, static, and distant thunder. The pack had come to Lyra 9 for vengeance, but as Rakor stood before the sight of his cubs asleep on the chest of a dying human, he realized vengeance might no longer be enough. The world had shifted, and for the first time, the Alpha stood still. The storm outside howled against the metal husk of Research Station Delta 9. Its thunder echoing through the hollow corridors like the growl of some ancient god. Dust and static seeped through the cracks, and the old power conduits flickered with every surge of the storm inside. 12 armed Varakai stood in perfect silence. Their rifles and claws trained on one fragile human. A man, half-conscious, slumped against a shattered cryotank, with two of their cubs sleeping against his chest. For long moments, no one moved. Even the air seemed afraid to stir. Ra, single quotes KOR Alpha of the pack, took a slow step forward. The motion sent faint tremors through the deck. His shadow swallowed the human whole. The human's breathing hitched, but he didn't raise a weapon. He had one. A plasma pistol lay half buried beside him, yet he made no move toward it. Instead, his hand rested protectively around the smaller cub's back, as though shielding it from the cold. Rakor's voice, deep and resonant, rolled through the room. "You said you saved them?" The man nodded weakly. "Yes," Sura hissed from behind. "Lies. Humans saved nothing." "You burned our worlds?" The human's gaze flicked up toward the lieutenant's snarling faceplate, then back to Rakor. "You're not wrong," he said, voice low. "But I didn't burn this one. I stayed behind. To stop them?" Rakor crouched, bringing himself level with the human. Up close, he could see the layers of exhaustion etched into the man's features. The cracked lips, the dried blood along his temple, the tremor in his hands. His uniform bore the rank insignia of a Vanguard science officer, though the patches had been ripped and burned. "What is your name, human?" Rakor asked. "Dr. Elias Ward," he said softly. "And why?" Rakor growled, his voice low and rumbling. Would a Terran scientist betray his own kind for ours? Ward closed his eyes briefly. "Because I saw what they were doing." He shifted slightly, wincing as pain flashed across his face. The cubs stirred but didn't wake. Their tiny claws flexed against his chest. "I was assigned to the Xenobiological Division," he continued. "They told us we were studying genetic resilience. Said it was about interspecies adaptation." He gave a hollow laugh. "But that was a lie. They wanted soldiers. They wanted to turn your children into weapons." The pack erupted in growls and curses, claws clattering against the floor. Rakor raised his hand and the sound cut off instantly. "Explain." The Alpha said. Ward took a ragged breath. "They learned your neural lattice was special. You were born with memory encoded in your DNA. Every generation remembers the last. It's beautiful." He hesitated, searching Rakor's golden eyes. "They wanted to extract it, to copy it into human soldiers. But it doesn't work. The memories drive humans insane." Rakor's growl deepened, vibrating through the chamber walls. "They tortured our young for this," Sura spat. "To steal our souls?" Ward bowed his head. "Yes." The words hung there, heavy as iron. Rakor's mechanical eye glowed brighter. "And you expect me to believe you stopped this?" Ward's lips cracked into a faint, pained smile. "Not just stopped it. I burned it. Every record, every sample, every officer who ordered it. That's why they left me here. Left you. They called me a traitor. I destroyed their work before extraction was complete. They evacuated the base during the bombardment, but I stayed behind. For them?" He glanced at the cubs again. They were all that was left. For the first time, Rakor said nothing. He extended a claw and brushed the air above the cub's fur, not touching. Just close enough to feel the faint warmth of their small bodies. His nostrils flared. They were his blood. He could smell it. The pack's cubs crackled. Alpha, human ships in orbit. Patrol signatures? Small, but active. Rakor grunted. "They're looking for him." Sura snarled, pacing. "Then let's offer him back. One human for 2 of ours. Let them see how mercy ends." Rakor turned his gaze slowly toward his lieutenant. "No." The word was quiet, but it carried the weight of command. Sura bared his fangs. "Alpha." Rakor's claws flexed, the air humming with static. "If this man speaks truth, then he has done what none of our kind could. He fought his own blood for ours. That deserves more than death." Sura hissed but fell silent. He had seen his Alpha in wrath before, and knew when to obey. Raker returned his attention to the human. "You said they will come for you?" Ward nodded faintly. "Soon. The orbital scanners will notice the power surge from this storm. Maybe an hour." Rakora's gaze turned to the cubs again. They were beginning to stir now, blinking their large golden eyes. One yawned, a tiny, squeaking sound that made even the battle-hardened pack glance uneasily at one another. The smaller cub tried to sit up, saw Rakor, and gave a soft chirp, the greeting call of the young. It made something in Rakor's chest tighten. He responded instinctively. A low rumble deep in his throat, the pack's ancient reassurance. You are safe. The cub tilted its head and blinked at him. Ward smiled faintly. They like that sound, he murmured. I used it to calm them when the power went out. Rakor's eyes narrowed. You speak their language? Not speak, Ward corrected. But I listened. They remember tones, emotion, like music. Sura muttered. He mocks us still. Rakor ignored him. You will tell me everything you know about what was done here. I will, Ward said. If you'll let me keep them safe until then. You presume to make demands? I'm not making demands, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I am asking. Something ancient stirred in Rakor's blood. Not rage this time, but memory. He remembered his first litter. Long ago on Korith Prime, before the bombardments, before the sterilization campaigns. He remembered his mate's laughter, the warmth of cubs pressed against his chest. Their tiny heartbeats dot, and he remembered the night the humans came. The night the sky burned blue and his den was turned to ash dot, he had sworn then that he would never feel mercy again. But now, mercy had found him. He stood, towering over Ward. The pack will move to the tunnels beneath the ridge, he ordered. We wait out the storm and regroup. If the humans come, we fight in shadow. Sura stepped forward. And the human? Rakor looked down at Ward, who clutched the cubs a little tighter. He comes with us. Gasps rippled through the pack. Alpha. Sura barked. He is our enemy? Rakor turned on him, teeth bared. He is the reason our young still draw breath. Would you spill his blood beside theirs? Sura hesitated. For the first time, his voice faltered. No, Alpha. Then obey, Rakor said, his tone final. Or leave my pack. The silence that followed was absolute. They moved through the storm before dawn. The pack carried what they could salvage. Weapons. Medical rations? Memory cores? Ward stumbled through the wind, half supported by Rakor's massive arm. The cubs rode in a sling against his chest. Wrapped in the Alpha's cloak, lightning split the horizon, illuminating them. 12 armored predators and one fragile man, crossing a dying world together. Above them, streaks of light carved across the clouds, human dropships. Descending toward the ruins, Ward saw them and whispered hoarsely, They're coming. Rakor's jaw tightened. His cum crackled with reports. Multiple heat signatures inbound. 30, maybe more. Scouts, Sura said. They'll sweep the base. Let them, Rakor growled. They'll find nothing but ghosts. He turned toward the human, whose face was pale with exhaustion. Rest when we reach the caverns, Rakor said. Until then, keep them close. They trust you now, and so will I. Ward looked up at the towering Alpha, disbelief flickering in his eyes. You trust me? Rakor's metallic eye gleamed. No, he said, but my cubs do. That is enough. As they vanished into the storm, the pack's shadows melted into the canyons, hunter and prey, ally and enemy all blurred by the rising dust of Lyra 9. Behind them, the ruined station glowed faintly with fire from the human patrol's landing thrusters. Ahead, deeper in the mountains, something ancient and buried waited, and both man and beast would soon learn that vengeance was only the beginning. The dawn broke red as blood dot, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the pack carried a human among them. The world of Lyra 9 lay beneath a bruised sky, its dawn dim and metallic. The jagged ridge of Mount Gorel loomed above the valley, splitting the landscape like an ancient wound. The air still smelled of ozone and burning dust from the orbital bombardments, but beneath that, there was something older, the scent of earth and metal, of secrets buried for centuries. Beneath the mountain, in the labyrinthine tunnels that honeycombed its base, the pack had taken refuge. Their armor glimmered faintly in the bioluminescent fungi that crawled along the rock walls. The cubs slept in a small alcove lined with scavenged thermal fabric, their breath slow and even. And beside them, Dr. Elias Ward slept as well, slumped against the wall, wrapped in Rekor's cloak. The Alpha sat a few meters away, watching in silence. He had not slept. Barakai Alphas rarely did. Instead, he listened to the faint thrum of energy far below them, to the slow heartbeat of the mountain, to the pulse of his pack scattered through the tunnels, and to the tiny, fragile heartbeat of the human who had become, against every law of blood and war, their guest. Alpha, came Sura's low growl from the shadows. Scouts have returned. Rekor rose, his full height brushing against the cavern ceiling. His armor plates clicked into place, a sound that made the lesser pack members step back instinctively. Sura knelt as the scouts entered, two younger Varakai, dust-streaked and breathing hard. "Report," Rekor said. "The humans have landed 3 drop detachments." One of the scouts rasped. "North sector, near the ruins?" "They're using heat scanners to track the lab's reactor signature." "They're close, Alpha," the other added. "Within 20 clicks." Sura's eyes gleamed. "They'll find our trail. Let me take a hunting team. We can ambush their scouts before they reach the canyon mouth." Rekor's gaze lingered on him. "You would strike first?" Sura bared his fangs. "Always." The Alpha's jaw flexed. "And risk leading them to our den?" "They already know we're here. Better they find corpses than footprints." Rekor's silence was long, his expression unreadable. Finally he said, "No hunting parties. We fight only when the cubs are safe." Sura snarled. "We are warriors, not nurses." The sound that followed was low and dangerous, a growl that started in Rekor's chest and made the rock around them vibrate. "Do you question my blood?" The Alpha said softly. Sura lowered his head, every instinct forcing submission. "Never, Alpha." "Then you will obey?" Rekor said. "We move only when I command it." When Sura was gone, Rekor turned back toward the alcove. The cubs had woken. They played clumsily with a piece of metal tubing, batting at it and squealing in the faint echo of laughter, a sound so rare that several pack members paused in the tunnels to listen. Ward opened his eyes slowly, blinking in the dim glow. "They're playing," he murmured, as though it were a miracle. Rocker rumbled softly. "That means they no longer fear." That is how young should sound. Ward pushed himself upright, wincing from his shoulder wound. "They're strong? Resilient?" The younger one. "She's recovering faster than any human child would after that much sedation." Rekor studied him. "You speak as a scientist again." Ward nodded, weary but calm. "It's the only thing I still know how to be." The Alpha crouched near him, eye level again. "You've seen what your kind did here. You've seen their cruelty. Tell me why I should not burn every Terran who walks this world when they come for you." Ward hesitated. "Because if you do, the war never ends." Rekor's jaw tightened. It already never ended. Ward's voice grew steadier. "Then end it yourself. Don't let them decide what kind of monster you become." The Alpha's golden eyes narrowed. "You think mercy will stop war?" "No," Ward said. "But vengeance never has either." Before Rekor could reply, the cumnet crackled sharply. "Alpha," a scout barked. Thermal pings, multiple signatures. They found the southern vent. Rekor's head snapped toward the tunnel. "How far?" "Less than a click." "Drop teams with heavy suits and scanners?" Sura's voice cut in over the comm. Eager. "Alpha? Permission to engage?" Rekor looked toward Ward and the cubs. They were already trembling from the distant rumble of engines. The mountain itself was beginning to tremble under the weight of human walkers. He rose to his full height. "Permission granted." The tunnels exploded into motion. The pack moved as one, silent, fluid, lethal. They stripped their armor of reflective plates, switching to stealth coatings, eyes glowing faintly in the dark like ghosts. Ward huddled in the alcove, clutching the cubs close. "You can't fight them head-on," he said as Rekor prepared his weapon, a fusion blade with a humming plasma core. Rekor's lip curled. "We are not head-on fighters. We are shadows." The pack dispersed, vanishing into side tunnels. The only sounds left were the hum of Rocker's blade and the slow, rhythmic breathing of the cubs. Then came the thunder. The first human squad entered the cavern mouth, cautiously. 10 soldiers in exosuits, scanners sweeping. Their visors glowed blue through the darkness. Heat signatures everywhere, one said. Movement to the left. He never finished the sentence. A shape dropped from the ceiling, claws first, and tore through his armor like foil. His scream echoed once before being cut short. Plasma bolts filled the air. The pack struck from all sides. They didn't roar, they whispered death. Each movement was a blur of muscle and light. Armor clashed against claws. Laser fire seared the air. The scent of blood and metal filled the tunnels. Rakor moved through the chaos like a given form. His blade cut arcs of light through the dark. When the last soldier fell, his armor smoking, the Alpha turned toward the ridge and saw dozens more lights moving through the dust outside. Ward stumbled toward him, pale and shaking. They'll keep coming. You have to get the cubs off-world. Rakor looked at him sharply. There is nowhere safe for them in the void. There's a shuttle still in the hangar, Ward said quickly. Damaged, but repairable. You can hide them long enough to escape orbit. Sura growled from behind. Alpha, he speaks madness. This is our world. We do not run. Rakor's claws clicked against his weapon. And if we stay, we die. The cubs die. The pack ends. Sura's eyes blazed. Better death in battle than flight with a human. The air grew electric between them. 2 warriors, 2 truths, both carved from the same agony. Finally, Rakor said quietly, You still think this is about vengeance? It's not. He stepped past his lieutenant, motioning for Ward to follow. It's about what comes after. The hangar was half collapsed, its roof split open to the violet sky. A burned-out shuttle sat in the center, its engines gutted, but its hull intact. Ward hurried to the control panel, fingers flying across cracked glass. I can reroute power from the auxiliary cells, he said. It won't get you far, but it might lift you to the upper atmosphere. Enough to break orbit if you're lucky. Rakor watched him work, the cubs peeking from the cloak strapped to his chest. And you? Ward didn't look up. Someone has to trigger the launch sequence manually. I'll stay. Rakor's snarl was immediate. No, you come. Ward met his gaze. Steady. Calm. You can't carry me and the cubs through an escape corridor under fire. You know that. Rakor's fists clenched, claws sparking against metal. Ward smiled faintly. You said they trust me. That was enough. That was enough. Let that be true. Outside, the thunder of approaching troops grew louder, the sound of an army closing in. Sura appeared at the entrance, blood streaking his armor. Alpha, they breached from the north. We can't hold them. Rakor turned toward the shuttle, then to Ward. The human was already at the console, initiating the startup. The panels flickered to life, engines whining faintly. The Alpha placed a massive, clawed hand on Ward's shoulder. You have earned more than death, he said softly. You have earned the pack's memory? That is eternity. Ward's eyes glistened. Then promise me one thing. Speak. Don't make them what we were. Rakor nodded once. I promise. The Alpha gathered the cubs in his arms and strode into the shuttle. Sura followed reluctantly, covering the hatch. As the engines began to pulse, the human outside turned back to the console. Ignoring the alarms blaring around him, the humans burst through the main entrance just as the shuttle ignited. Plasma fire filled the hangar. Ward didn't run. He slammed the final command into the terminal, launch, and the floor trembled as the shuttle roared upward in a blaze of light. The soldiers shouted, firing uselessly into the sky. Rakor stood at the viewport, watching the mountain shrink below them, watching the flash of blue as the hangar was consumed in fire. He bowed his head, not in mourning, but in honor. High above Lyra 9, the shuttle broke through the clouds into the cold silence of the upper atmosphere. The cubs whimpered softly in his arms, sensing the change. Sura sat across from him, armor scorched and dented. He's dead, isn't he? Rakor stared out into the stars. No, he said quietly. He's remembered. Below them, The fires of Lyra 9 burned like the last heartbeat of a dying god dot above them. The endless void waited, not as escape, but as a new beginning, and in that void, Rakor realized what vengeance had cost, and what mercy could still create. The Alpha stood, the cubs safe in his arms. The war ends when we say it does, he said to his pack, and today it ends. To be continued in Chapter 4, The Stand Beneath Two Suns. The shuttle tore through the upper atmosphere in a streak of fire and light, leaving behind the dying world of Lyra-9 inside. The silence was deep, not the silence of peace, but of exhaustion. Of souls stretched to the edge of endurance, Rakor sat at the helm. One massive hand steadying the trembling control yoke. Across his chest, two cubs slept beneath the folds of his cloak, their fur glowing faintly in the emergency lighting. They were safe, for now, but the shuttle was dying. The engines wheezed, coughing out trails of vaporized coolant. Warning sigils flashed red across the cracked console. They had escaped the human patrols, but only barely. The vessel had taken a glancing hit during ascent. A fusion bolt that had burned through half the aft stabilizers. They were rising into orbit on faith and fury alone. Sura sat opposite him. His armor scorched, his face streaked with blood and soot. Around them, the surviving members of the pack moved quietly, tending wounds, resetting weapons, securing the Cub's small carrier capsule. There were only 6 left now. Engines will not hold, Sura said at last, voice low and grim. We'll fall before we clear orbit. Rakor's eye flickered with data streams. The auxiliary boosters may push us beyond the pole. There's a derelict field above Lyra 9, old war wrecks. We can hide there. Sura gave a short, bitter laugh. Hide? We are Varakai? Alpha. Hiding is for prey. Rakor turned slowly toward him, eyes cold as the void. So is extinction. Sura's mouth tightened, but he said nothing more. The shuttle shuddered violently. A warning klaxon screamed through the cabin. Contact, one of the pack barked. Human interceptors, 2 of them, closing fast. Through the viewport, twin streaks of silver burned through the sky, descending from orbit. Their engines flared blue, Terran make, agile and deadly. Rakor's claws dug into the console. They tracked us. Sura stood, shoulders squared. Then we make our stand here. The Alpha hesitated, gaze flicking to the cubs sleeping against his chest. He could smell their warmth, their innocence. The future of their kind. Ward's final words echoed in his mind. Don't make them what we were. Rakor looked up. Not here, he said. Not while they live. He turned to the others. Prepare the capsule. Launch it toward the wreck field. I will draw the enemy away. The pack stared at him in silence. Sura's voice was low, disbelieving. You would face them alone? Yes, Rakor said simply. That is the duty of the Alpha. The cubs stirred as the pack obeyed. They worked quickly, removing the small life pod from the rear compartment, a survival capsule built for laboratory transport. Within, they placed the 2 cubs, wrapped in thermal fiber, their small forms barely filling the padded chamber. Sura watched as Rakor knelt beside them. The Alpha's clawed fingers brushed lightly across their fur, a gesture of farewell older than words. Carry our memory into the stars, he murmured in the old tongue. May the next dawn find you in peace. He sealed the pod and handed it to Sura. Take them to the wreck field. Hide among the debris until the humans leave orbit. If I fall, you lead. Sura hesitated. Alpha, I do not fail them, Rakor said quietly. The lieutenant bowed his head, fists clenching. By my blood, I will not. The interceptors struck moments later. Bolts of plasma ripped through the thin upper clouds, tearing molten scars into the shuttle's hull. Rakor slammed his hand on the control panel, rerouting what little power remained. The engines screamed in protest. Now. He barked. Sura launched the capsule. The small pod shot from the shuttle's underbelly like a comet, vanishing into the burning sky. The sensors registered its course, straight toward the derelict field. Lost among the ruins of old ships, the cubs were gone, beyond reach. Beyond danger, only then did Rakor turn his gaze toward the enemy. The interceptors closed in, forming a tight pincer around the shuttle. Through the fractured viewport, Rakor saw the insignia emblazoned on their hulls. Terran Vanguard. Command. The same crest that had once flown over the labs that tortured his kind. Ra! Kor's voice was calm as he opened the comm channel. This is Rakor the Varakai, he said. You pursue the wrong prey? A crackling voice answered, cold, human, mechanical. Unidentified vessel. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You already destroyed everything worth surrendering for. He cut the channel and looked at Sura. Take the pack. Escape in the ventral pods. That's an order. Sura shook his head. We stand with you? Rakor's lips twitched in something like a smile. You already have. He hit the eject sequence. The lower pods burst free, streaking toward the planet's shadow. The pack were gone, all except the Alpha. The interceptors fired. Rakor slammed the thrusters to maximum, turning the dying shuttle straight into their path. The ship howled like a wounded beast. Alarms shrieked. Atmosphere vented in shimmering trails. He wrote not a word, but a sound that shook the very air. A sound of every world lost, every cub taken. Every memory burned into his bloodline. The shuttle rammed the lead interceptor head-on. The impact tore the sky apart. Fire boomed in the stratosphere. A star born and dying in a heartbeat. The second interceptors spun away, caught in the blast wave, spiraling down toward the planet below. For a long, terrible moment, there was only silence, then the fragments of the shuttle. Glowing embers drifted into the void far below, hidden in the wreck field. The life pod floated quietly among the bones of old ships. Inside, the cubs slept, unaware of the sacrifice that had bought their lives. The pod's navigation system, slave to ancient war code, pinged faintly on an encrypted beacon, a beacon of Varakai origin. The signal echoed across the void, seeking a response. And far away, beyond the dying light of Lyra 9, a forgotten colony stirred. An old receiver blinked to. Life. Signal detected. Source, Lyra 9, Varakai. Genetic sequence confirmed. The war was not over. But perhaps finally it could be reborn as something else. Epilogue, the Alpha's promising. The archives of the Varakai long after the wars had faded into myth. There remained a single memory, the genetic imprint passed down from one generation to the next. A vision of an Alpha standing before a human. Fangs bared not in hatred, but in understanding, and a voice, echoing through the centuries. We came for vengeance. We found something greater. The pack stands. Beneath two suns on a world reborn, the descendants of both species would one day walk together and remember the night when the Alpha stood still.